I've just finished reading all of the patch notes. This video will have my opinions as well as reading them out to you and sort of explaining the changes for the ones I understand fully. There are some cool changes in here. There are buffs to players, not that many nerfs. They sort of stuck true to their promise of not nerfing everyone into the ground right before the season. There are some new build potentials that will be coming out of this, some new items. There's some changes to itemization in terms of power structure, and there's some pretty good quality of life and user change experiences. So you might want to watch this one all the way through. Every single class got something, gameplay got something, there's some boss changes, etc. So let's just break it all down. Let's get going. Okay, the Diablo 4 Season 3 full patch notes, including balance changes and everything that was not covered previously, has just been released. If we pull it up right here, they start with the class updates. Now, we're going to pick our way through this and sort of give an overview on what's going on. Let's read the developer notes they have here. It's important for us that when the player chooses to fully invest in a skill, the payoff is immense. In pursuit of this goal, several of our unique and legendary items are targeting skills that have yet to reach their full potential. We're excited to see what players accomplished with our new unique items for Barbarian's Rend, Druid Lightning skills, and Sorcerer's Meteor. We're also targeting pressing issues for each class. Necromancers with cult leaders should see their minions strike a bit harder. Barbarians shouldn't feel that 3 shouts are a requirement for their success, and sorcerers applying vulnerable with lightning spear should open new build opportunities. There are also class updates to items and skills that are underperforming, such as Rogue's ranged unique items and Necromancer's Golem, aka they're trying to shake up the meta a bit. Pretty standard for ARPG. Good to see that they're shaking it up. I think the big shout out here is things like Barbarians not having to use 3 shouts is pretty obviously a common complaint, and Sorcerers not getting enough vulnerability, and as well as minions from Necromancer, etc. So let's pick our way through this and see exactly what we're seeing here. For all classes, there are some new items. There are these gauntlets. They're unique gauntlets, and what they do is damaging enemies with a cast non-basic skill marks them for 3 seconds. When the basic skill first hits a marked enemy, the basic skill damage is echoed to all marked enemies, dealing 100 to 200% increased damage. So effectively, this makes a single target basic attack sort of an AoE splash off the original target. Pretty cool, pretty basic. It is for basic skills. I like it. Let's continue. Aspect of adaptability, utility. When cast below 50% maximum resource, basic skills generate 3 more of your primary resource once per cast. When cast at above 50% maximum, basic skills deal 40 to 80% increased damage. So this is just a way to generate more resource or do more damage for basic skills. I like that one also. Let's see what we have here. Gain armor. Your Vade has 100% increased cooldown. Oh, that's kind of cool. Juggernaut's aspect. So this is sort of a swap your evasion for armor type of situation here. So all 3 of these actually seem kind of cool. To be honest, all like the new items. Item updates here, the Ring of Starless Skies. So they updated it to now spending resources reduces your resource cost and increases your damage by 10% for 3 seconds, up to 40%. Before it was casting a core skill reduces the resource cost of your core skills by 12%, up to a maximum of 40%, and resets upon using a non-core skill. Now we don't have this resets upon core skill, and it's for all abilities. So spending resources reduce your resources cost and increases the damage. So that's nice as well. This won't work with basic attacks if you're doing basic build, if you're thinking about pairing it with something like this, because you have to be spending resource. But I suppose since it goes up for 3 seconds, you could weave that in or something like that. Offensive aspect of the expectant damage bonus now is a 5-second duration to be used. Not a big deal there. So melted heart of the slag, or however you want to say this. This is effectively the thing making people immortal, and now all stats increase by 2x value, so buff there. Core skill damage changed to movement speed. So now you move faster, but the DPS increase from the core skill damage is pretty good. Is a slightly nerf there. Damage while healthy increased to 3x the normal value. And then the unique power, which if we read these changes here is kind of cool. It used to be 30% max resource. In addition, when you take damage, drains 3 resource for every 1% of life you would have lost instead. But now it is, look at this, 60% max resource, so more max resource, but 75% of incoming damage drains 2 resource for every 1% of life you would have lost instead. So now it's 75% of the incoming damage instead of in addition when you take damage. They're probably trying to make sure this item isn't dog, but still at the same time save us from these completely like 100% invulnerable type of builds. That's what it looks like from me. That's why they're compensating it with sort of the changes and buffs to other things like damage while healthy, for instance. So If we move on here to the overpower, so overpower got nerfed. They mentioned this during the dev live stream that overpower was going to get nerfed. It goes down to 1%, down from 2% per 1%. So this is just a 50% nerf. If you're wondering what this means without reading all of it, this is a 50% nerf across the board to overpower. So now we're going to get to individual changes. And since these ones are going to affect each individual, we're kind of just going to pick our way through these. We can go more into detail and literally everything later. But effectively, Barbarian, they mentioned this during the live, is that they're really trying to make charge better. Also, these are new items. So Ren's duration is increased. Damaging enemies with brawling skills with Stack the Ren. Effect only occurs once every 4 seconds per enemy. So now we have something for Ren here. They also gave us something for Upheaval, which is quite cool. Every 25 seconds, guaranteed overpower increases your damage, reduced by 4 seconds when you hit a boss or elite. So effectively, they're trying to make Upheaval a little bit better. I actually quite like these, and since Upheaval is going to be hit due to overpower here, then this one at least gives you a guaranteed overpower, increased damage, and will help you a little bit there. Now, continuing, this is the one to really talk about here is charge. Base damage is increased by 900%. They actually show the slide during the live where it goes from doing like 1,200 damage to like 12,000. Basically, this is a 10x multiplier increased by 900% from 0.25 to 2.5. So pretty insane charge. They say they do plan and expect charge to be quite good going into this season. Now, enhanced charge terrain impact damage is increased by 150%. Power charge no longer requires a terrain impact. So you can see where if you're going to be a barbarian and you like charging, it's time for you to log right in because you're going to like that. Leap also gets a base damage increase by 30%. So these maneuverability barbarian moves get upgraded. Now, overpower, once again, is getting nerfed here. Brute force overpower damage decreased from 15% to 8%. Walking Arsenal gets some changes. The duration of the weapon bonus increased from 8 to 10. Additional damage from 15 to 20. Bonuses increase attack speed by 20%. So Walking Arsenal gets a little bit of a W there. Unconstrained damage bonus gets an increase. Gushing Wounds gets an increase as well. And then weapon expertise leveling has been cut by 50%. This will make this a little bit easier. Now moving on to the Paragons for Barb. Reduces the cooldown of every non-shout skill by 4 seconds instead of every shout skill by 1.2 seconds. This is pretty much the concept of they don't want you to have to spam only shouts. We're going to be seeing a lot of the buffs to other things. Moving on, item updates. Now generate fury per second while any shout is active instead of the 2.5 per second each shout skill is active. So any shout skill. So one shout skill can generate as much fury as having like 3 of them effectively, because it went from instead to the 4 per second for each to just 6 to 10 for any, basically. So that's another smart change. They're trying to get you away from having 3 or 4 shouts on the board here is what they don't like here. Offensive aspect of limited rage. Now it's a 5-second bonus duration. Our 5-second bonus now has a 5-second duration, I should say. Veteran Brawler's offensive aspect reduces the bonus damage per stack 15 to 20 to 6 to 8, up to a reduced maximum of 225 to 300 to 30 to 40. Okay, hold on. This is a massive nerf. Reduced bonus damage per stack from 1520 to 6 to 8. That's already like almost a 3x nerf there. Up to a reduced maximum bonus of 225, 330 to 330 to 40. A little bit worded weirdly there. Oops, let me pull these notes back up here. Worded a little bit weirdly there, but basically that's a pretty large nerf that we're seeing back here to the Veteran Brawler's offensive aspect. Okay. Offensive aspect of Ancestral Charge, damage, reduced bonus from damage from 75, 125 to 230. This is probably to balance the fact that it already got a massive 10x buff. So the bonus damage would probably make it a little bit insane and one-shot literally everything. So they're probably trying to play around that. Offensive aspect of the Encroaching Wrath reduces bonus weapon mastery damage from 80 to 100 to 40 to 60. Damage bonus, now it's a 5-second duration to be used. Okay, so we're going to see a lot of these 5-second duration bonuses to be used, a little bit of quality of life there. Now, Druid. Here we go. Druid boys, rejoice. Lightning Storm gets a new one. They showed this off in the live stream effectively. You're going to hold down Lightning Storm every time it gets a strike. It grows. Lightning Storm critical strike causes lightning to strike twice, dealing increased damage as well. So it ramps a little bit better as well as you get more and more lightning strikes per cast, basically. You're going to hold it, it's going to hit, and then it'll go hit once, and if it crits, it'll go 1, 2, dealing increased damage, and you're going to gain an additional strike each time it's growing as well. So that actually looks like it's going to be pretty good. The video that they showed of this looked like it was going to be pretty good too. I'm more interested, I'll be honest, in rabies, which now has a new utility aspect. When rabies infects an enemy, reduces its cooldown by 0.3, 0.6. This cooldown reduction is tripled when affecting elite. So they're trying to help some of the single target damage there, basically, is what we're saying. And rabies also gets double the damage bonus from enhanced rabies. So that's pretty cool as well. Lacerate reduced from 45 to 35 seconds, another buff there. So Druid's looking like it's sitting pretty so far. Prime Lacerate changed functionality, used to heal for 3% max life, increased to 6% on criticals. Oh, wait, change functionality. Lacerate hits heal for 3% maximum, increased to 6% on criticals. What was the original on Prime Lacerate? I'm going to look this up. Okay, looked it up. It used to be that you got 5% on a crit. Now it's 3% base, 6% on crit here. I don't think I ever used this one, I'll be honest with you. So this one right here was not a major use for me. Cataclysm, but it actually might be now that's 3% on hit, to be honest with you. It's more of a leech now. Cataclysm, Twister damage increased from 23 to 46%. Love to see that. And lightning damage increase. I actually think Cataclysm is one of the coolest moves. I was using it for a while just as copium because I actually quite liked the move. Even though I knew it wasn't like, it was all right. You know, the other ones are better. So I actually love to see that getting buffed. And Supreme Cataclysm vulnerable duration is doubled, basically from 3 to 6 seconds. All of these changes are actually pretty good for the Druid. All right, I don't think it's going to change any super major metas, but Rabies might actually be somewhat decent now. And then Lightning Storm here, this could actually do something with Lightning Storm, so we'll have to see how that plays out. I do actually really like this change here. For some reason, I was thinking this was the Spirit boon, and I would like to see some changes to Spirit boons, so I guess we're going to see as we skip through this here. It looks like Spirit boons are actually down there. Okay, passives. Mending, additional healing received increase from 5 to 6% per rank. Thick Hide Fortified gain from 6.4 to 10% per rank. So again, buffs. We're seeing buffs to Druid here. I like to see these buffs to healing and tankiness as well. Unrestrained, controlling impairing affects. Duration reduction increased from 3 to 5% per rank. Increased benefit while over 50% fortify. Reduced from tripled to doubled. Okay, so the controlling impairing effects duration increased from 3 to 5. I see. So whether it was up to 9% before from being tripled when it was tripled, and now it is doubled up to 10%. So it's still factually a buff. They just don't want to take it to 15%. They're trying to take it to up to 10%. So it's a buff, but a small buff. Now, moving on here. Natural Fortitude, Fortify gained on shapeshifting increased from 1.4 to 2% rank. So that's almost a 50% buff there on that. I'm seeing a lot of buffs actually to Druids here. Required shapeshift duration reduced from 2.5 to 2 seconds. That's good for Bestial Rampage. Attack speed bonus increased from 25 to 30. Again, more buffs. So Druids getting away pretty good in this patch here. Spirit boons. Thorns increase. They did talk about this one on the live stream. They want this Spirit boon to actually do something. They're aware no one basically uses it. So this more or less got quadrupled here. For Thorns. This is just a Thorn Spirit boon. I still don't imagine people are going to be doing this. Maybe if you're trying to make a Thorns build work, I've tried to make a Thorns build work multiple times. We'll have to see how that actually plays out. Gift of the Stag maximum spirit increase from 10 to 20. That's actually kind of nice. To be honest, that one's not bad. I used that one for a short period of time. Critical strike damage bonus is now multiplicative instead of additive on Avian's Wrath, which is nice because 20% flat isn't a big deal, but 20% multiplicative is actually quite a big deal. So this is a much larger buff than this actually looks like for the Spirit boon. Love that. Moving on to the Paragons here, the Tectonic bonus lucky hit chance increased, 30% buff on that. Poise, barrier increased from 5% maximum health to 15, duration increased from 4 to 6, another buffs there. It looks like we have even more buffs from Wild's passive companion damage bonus by 50% buff as well off of the Wild's Paragon. So these are, again, all buffs. So we are continuing to see buffs here from Druid. Aspect of the Blurred Beast, the previous while dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poison enemies, instantly dealing damage. This is where we got kind of the Flicker Strike type of build here. But now it's while dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poison enemies and deals increased damage to them. Instead of instantly dealing the poison damage to them, this deals increased 20 to 40x, and that's a multiplier increased damage. So kind of getting rid of the instant poison popping, but increasing the poison does. I think they prefer the playstyle of you dash out and hit them, and then dash to the next one, and they bleed out behind you, as opposed to you dash out and basically one-shot everything with the billions of damage we were seeing. So that one arguably could be a nerf. Aspect of the metamorphic stone here, Bother's spirit cost reduced from 50 to 40. That's actually quite nice. We were trying this one out earlier. This is actually my favorite build in the game. The problem with the Bother build, which is the one you get the unique amulet and spins around you, and then you cast Bothers as a core skill, is that the Bothers actually hit all of the minions and knock them away from you, meaning that you can't stand and stack them unless they're like immune to knockback and you're hitting like a boss or something. It's pretty hard to get these boulders to consecutively deal damage. Aspect of the unsated here. Spirit generation bonus damage increased. Once again, looks like another 50% buff. We're actually getting significant buffs to the druid, except here the aspect of retaliation bonus damage reduced from 2040 to 2030. But overall, if you're a druid, you should be fairly happy about this patch so far. These are all quite good changes. Now we're going to move on here to Necromancer. Now they mentioned that they're going to try to make minions more in line with where they want them to be here. Mutilator Plate's a new item. You are Bloodlanced. When Bloodlance would deal damage to you, it instead fortifies you for 1 to 2% of your max life, and has 5% chance to form a blood orb. Bloodlance deals increased damage. It's actually pretty good. I like that, because basically you Bloodlance yourself, you hit the other targets, the targets hit you back, and instead of damaging you, you basically get fortified here. Pretty cool. Casting Bone Spirit launches bone splinters in all directions, dealing 200 to 400% X. That's multiplicative. That's insane. Increased damage and generating 6 essence per enemy hit. They mentioned that they really wanted Bone Spirit to. They even put a stonk graph here of like the memes of the line going up. They say they really want the Bone Spirit to go to the moon. It looks like they are adding an essence for that. Iron Maiden gets a buff. Horde Iron Maiden gets a buff. Corpse Explosion, Lucky Hit Chance reduced. Base damage gets a buff. Blight, Corpse Explosion damage decreased, which is a little surprising to me. Blight damage over time gets an increase. That's nice for dot people. Sever initial damage increase. Return damage increase. It looks like we're going down the route of buffs here. Bone Spirit damage is increased by 4%, up from 3% on the Bone Spirit. Again, Bone Spirit right here, big buff. This might actually pair well with that new amulet. If you look at the new amulet, it went from 30 max resource to 60 max resource on the amulet for that new melted slag. So actually pairing this with Bone Spirit probably is a build we're going to see coming up. Dreadful Bone Spirit now restores 30% of your max essence instead of 30 flat. This is enormous, in my own personal opinion. So Bone Spirits are actually getting a very cool build. I can already see it. This looks good. Acolytes Decompose here. It used to deal your minions deal 10% X increased damage to enemies while being composed. Every 1.5 seconds, Decompose makes enemies vulnerable. That's probably better. Decompose felt bad, but now you can spam Decompose basically on somebody and mark them as vulnerable, which is a better way to guarantee that apply if you choose to go down that route. Initials Decompose was slowing, but now it slows by 50%, as well as if you channel Decompose for 1.5, you gain a movement speed bonus. So they're trying to make Decompose a thing. I like that. It was a little bit left behind. We have Blood Mist here, fortifies you each time it hits an enemy is the previous, but now it's you gain 10% crit strike for 4 seconds after Blood Mist ends. So they're trying to move away some of the survivability power from the Blood Mist. That's probably fair. It's probably the best survivable move in the game, and they're trying to move that to some offensive aspect afterwards. Bone Prison now makes it where you can't troll your own teammates, and the functionality is enhanced. The functionality of Enhanced Bone Prison and Ghastly Bone Prison have been swapped. So then if you look at Enhanced, enemies inside of the Bone Prison are vulnerable. And the Ghastly now makes it where if they're trapped by the Bone Prison, you gain 25 essence plus 5 additional per trapped. Okay. So moving on, the Dreadful Bone Prison used to be where it fortifies 8% of your max life, but now reduces your active cooldowns by 0.5 seconds for each enemy trapped by the Bone Prison up to 3 seconds. So you can use Bone Prison as a utility to remove the cooldown of some of your other abilities, basically is how they see this playing out. So you probably, you unload your moves, you Bone Prison somebody, reduces the cooldown, so the cycle of life and death repeats itself. That's what they're trying to do here. So Ossified Essence now displays the current bonus on the tooltip, just a nice quality of life there. And then we get into the Book of the Dead, which is where most of you minion boys are probably going to start carrying. Golem here. When Golem finishes casting their active ability, they would try to target a new close enemy before reverting to their previous target. Blood Golem and Iron Golem. So they're trying to do some AI changes, basically, make AI a little better here. Blood Golem and Iron Golem basically attacks now hit enemies in an area around the main target, so we get splash damage, which is actually quite good for that. Activate ability now grants the Golem's Thorn equal to 70% of your armor for the duration of the taunt, trying to make basically a Golem with the Thorns. Not so bad. I like to see that, honestly, because I still think Thorns are pretty cool. And I tried every single season to do a Thorn Necromancer build, and I gave up around level 40 out of pure frustration and went to something else, literally every time. I guess this is another season where I will be baited into trying to do a Thorns Necromancer. Moving on here, Bone Mage. Upgrade now fortifies based on your maximum life instead of base life. So this is sort of like the changes they did last season where fortify is based on max life, but this one got left out and now it is followed up just like the other ones. So healing increased from 25 to 40% over the 8-second duration. So Skeleton Priest is just slightly better there. And then we have Paragon. Cult Leader Legendary Node. Used to do 15% X increased damage for each type of minion. Now you deal 10% increased damage for each 20% attack speed bonus they have. So you can ramp attack speed, which will also ramp your damage. That means when you do things like, the Dead Super, that when they get that huge ramp of attack speed, you're actually going to get quite a ramp of damage as well. So this is a little bit better for bursting. Golem here. Additional bonus damage changed from 25% health to 25% damage. Okay, so this is the Legendary Paragon node. Actually is ramping Golem's damage. That's interesting. It's not like your Golem really matters if it dies. It's not like it was dying that often, to be quite honest with you. So I'd like to see that it's more damage now instead. It might actually be worth it instead of just sacking it. Moving on here, item updates. Aspect of the Swelling Curse. Previous Bone Spirit damage increased based on distance traveled up to 15 to 25x, but now its Bone Spirit's critical strike chances increased by 15 to 25% plus. Okay, so we actually are getting flat bonus crit strike increase, and your max essence is increased by 2 for each enemy hit for 15 seconds. Oh, wow. So this is going to be ramping. So you hit somebody and you pop off with getting like a huge cluster kill, and then your max essence shoots through basically the moon, which ramps the next one. This is interesting because it doesn't say there's a cap. So I wonder if each additional one, like within those 15 seconds, if you can snowball this and end up having like a crazy large bone spirit. They really want people to go down this bone spirit avenue and figure this out. I actually quite like that. These are some more interesting mechanic changes, some smarter ones instead of just sort of the number changing. They're actually changing functionality and gameplay style of that. I like that. To be honest, Necromancer and Druid both have some pretty good changes. I'd say Necromancer here maybe got the more interesting ones, but these are cool so far. Torturous Aspect. Previous enemies afflicted by your Iron Maiden have 15 to 25% chance to be stunned for 1 second when they deal direct damage. Let me read this again. Afflicted by, okay, so this is the previous, but now, what is it going to now? Iron Maiden's now also a darkness skill and deal shadow damage. Really? Enemies afflicted by your Iron Maiden now have a 15 to 25% chance to be stunned for 1 second when they deal direct damage. So this part's the same, but now it's a darkness skill and deals shadow damage. Okay, I get it now. So basically you can ramp this based upon your shadow damage properties. They're making this a different modifier. Okay, with the Torturous Aspect. Got it. Rotting Aspect, chance to spawn additional corpses increased. That is a small, nice change. Hulking Aspect, chance to reduce active cooldown increase from 2 to 5 to 4 to 10, and chance to spawn corpse increase. I've never once used this aspect, so it makes sense that they're changing it. Moving on here, the Rogue. By the way, if you're Necro, these are cool changes. You should pretty much like, I'd say, all of these, honestly. Moving on to Rogue. Let's see here. Casting ultimate, your next core skill consumes all your energy and deals 0.5 to 1.5% increased damage per enemy energy consumed. Using a cooldown restores 5 energy. Okay, so you cast an ultimate, your core skill consumes all your energy, does increased damage. Using a cooldown restores 5 energy. So they want you to have more of a nuke with these boots. The new item here, Breaking Concealment, grants 10% resistances and maximum resistance to all elements for 4 seconds. Okay. Killing an elite enemy reduces concealment's cooldown by 6 to 10 seconds. So you pop out of the concealment, you're much more tanky, you do your move, you hopefully kill an elite, reduce your cooldown, you pop concealment back again, and when you come back out, you're tanky. Interesting, sort of a bob and weave style is sort of what they're trying to do there. Blade Shift gets a damage increase and a duration increase. Fundamental Invigorating Strikes. Vulnerable now applies while you're below 85% energy, up from 75% energy. So this is actually a buff. Caltrips gets enemies in Caltrips take 10% increased damage from you, increased by 5 per seconds for each seconds that they're... Okay, hold on. Let me read this again. Butcher this. Enemies in Caltrip take 10% increased damage from you, increased by 5% X each second. It used to be takes 5% increased damage from you each second they're in the Caltrips. So now it's 10% flat with a 5% X. Okay. For some reason, my brain didn't want to process that one. That's just a buff. They get 10% buff flat and then 5% each. So that part remains the same. Rain of Arrows, cast time reduced. First wave of arrow now hits closer to the player. Try to make Rain of Arrows a little bit more quality of life there with the ease of casting. Code Imbuement chill amount increases by 5% per skill rank, up from 2.5. So Code Imbuement, a little bit better. Remove the critical strike requirement on blended Code Imbuement and increase the lucky chance. They're trying to make Code a little better. I like to see that. To be honest, I never saw anyone do Code. I almost forgot Code Imbuement was even in the game. Mixed Poison Imbuement. The used to be Lucky Hit Poison Imbues have 30% chance to apply double the amount, and now it's new. The Lucky Hit Poison Imbues with 30% chance to reduce its imbuement cooldown. Okay, so no more 30% chance to apply double. Oh, okay, that's actually a damage nerf for sure. Forceful Arrow, vulnerable duration increased from 3 to 5. Nice low vulnerability quality of life there. Penetrating Shot used to do 10% X per enemy it pierces. Now has 10% increased crit. If Penetrating Shot damages at least 3 enemies, gain another critical chance. So the rampiness of the increased damage multiplier is now gone, but you actually get increased crit here. Improved Penetrating Shot. It used to be if you damage 3 enemies, your next Penetrating Shot is increased crit. But now it deals, Penetrating Shot deals additional damage per enemy it hits. They actually swapped these. This looks like a swap. I don't know if it makes more like clarity in reading, but that's what happened here. These are basically swapping. Passives here. Close quarters combat. Amount of damage versus crowd controlled. Bonus conversion percentage reduced from 40 to 10%. Really? Attack speed per stack increased from 10 to 15%. Okay. So a little bit of mixed buff and nerf there. Amount of damage versus crowd control bonus conversion reduced significantly from 40 to 10% there. Precision. Okay, use precision. This is going to be a long one right here. Critical strike with marksman grants you precision. You gain 4% critical strike damage per stack, up to a maximum of 20. When you reach maximum 20, you'll guarantee the crit. 40% increased damage. They consume all stacks of it. Now it is each marksman skill grants 1 stack of precision or 2 if it has critically struck. When you reach 6, your next marksman core or ultimate is guaranteed critical that deals 50% X increased critical strike damage, consuming all of the precision stacks. Okay, this damage is further increased by an amount equal to 15% of your critical strike bonus. So this is a X multiplier that's increased off of your original critical strike multiplier, somewhat allowing your critical strike damage bonus to now actually ramp multiplicatively, but at a reduced ratio than it used to previous critical strike damage changes. So this might actually be more complex to build, but seems like it could potentially have a higher ceiling, if that makes sense. Chilling weight here. Chilled enemies have their movement speed further reduced as the previous one. Now it's chilled enemies have their movement speed further reduced, and you gain increased chill effect. So again, they're trying to make chilling a little better. Concussive here. After it used to be after knocking back or knocking down an enemy, you gain 4% increased crit strike chance against them for 4 seconds. But now it's after knocking them down, you gain 4% critical strike chance for 4 seconds. Not against them, you just get it, making it actually somewhat useful. Okay, Paragon here. They have a change to the Paragon. Inner sight gauge becomes full 100% dodge chance, but now when it becomes full, you gain 100% dodge chance for 2 seconds, up from 1.5. Your next 3 core skills deal additional damage equal to 20% of your core skill damage bonus. So this is a buff. This one got a buff. Blade Dancer's aspect gets a change. The orbiting blades now hit enemy 2 times reduced from 3. So this is basically Twisting Blades reduction here. And the previous Twisting Blades orbit for a short time around you, dealing 10 to 15% of Twisting Blades damage return per hit. Based on the distance they return, the orbit damage increases to 20-30. That's what it used to be. That's what we're all used to, the Twisting Blades. But now it orbits for a short time after they return to you, dealing 20-30% of Twisting Blades return damage per hit. So it's just there and back, and then can hit enemies twice. Because it used to look like 2 rotations, but was hitting 3 is what they were saying here. So this is actually a significant nerf is the way I'm reading this. This is, yeah, that's from 3 to 2 is a fairly significant nerf on that here. Let's see, 10 to 15% of return damage. Now it's 20, 30% return damage. Okay, I see. And based on the distance the blade returned, the orbit damage increased. So they dropped the distance that it returns to you, and now basically you have to rely on the return damage more. So it's hit it, pull it. The hit and pull are really where you're getting the majority of your damage. This looks like a pretty big nerf, though. I'll be honest. That's what I'm seeing here to Twisting Blade. So if you're a Twisting Blade enjoyer, that looks like an L. Aspect of the Stolen Vigor. Each stack of key passive here, 0048. What does it go to? Heals you 004 to 008 and grants you 5% damage reduction. A little bit of a buff. Icy Alchemist. From lucky hit damage for chilling enemy with Shadow Imbue, 75% chance to release an explosion that deals cold damage surrounding enemies. But now it goes to new lucky hit. Shadow Imbued skills have 75% chance. So now they drop the requirement of damage chilled enemies. You don't have to have them be damaged or chilled first in order for this to do something here. That it just has to deal cold damage to the target and surrounding enemies, chilling them for 25 seconds. If they were already chilled, this increases up to 100%. So they moved that requirement of being chilled to bonus damage instead of a flat requirement. That's actually a good change. Once again, it looks like code is on the way up here. Toxic Alchemist. I'm assuming this gets a nerf. Looks like they're nerfing poison. Damage a poison enemy with Shadow Imbued, 75% chance to create toxic explosion over 5 seconds and surrounding enemies. But now it has 75% chance to create a toxic explosion that does 0.2 to 0.3 over 5 seconds surrounding enemies. If they were already in poison, increases damage by 100%. Now that just reads to me as better, actually, to be honest with you. Because they took the requirement of have to be poisoned. Still a 75% chance. Applies 0.2 to 0.3, up from 0.15, 0.2 over 5 to the target surrounding enemies. And if he was already poisoned, increase the damage. Actually, that just looks better. I thought we'd get a nerf there, but we did not. Wind Force, lucky hit chance increased from 20-30 to 30-40. Sky Hunter, inherent effects change from damage to distant enemies to critical strike damage. So a little bit better of a multiplier there. Or at least up to the cap, and I guess it's all the same after a certain cap, but still a better stat regardless, especially since we consider that you can use the multiplier of the 15% off the previous item we were talking about. Critical strike damage would be better. Critical strike damage affects value increased by 100%. Does not apply to inherent critical strike damage affects. Effect update to reflect the changes to the precision key passive. So it goes from the first damage you deal is a guaranteed crit if you have maximum stacks when you cast it. Okay, so they're just reiterating the precision skill that we've already talked about for clarity. That's all that's going on there. Eagle Horn here, penetrating shot, 30 to 80% chance to fire an arrow that bounced off the walls and scenery. Damage 5 enemies with penetrating shot will cause your next cast to make enemies hit vulnerable for 3 seconds. Penetrating shot makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. Every 4th cast bounce off walls and scenery dealing 20 to 40%. Okay, so now we have vulnerability there. Every 4th shot bounces off the walls instead of a 30 to 80% chance to fire an arrow that bounces off the walls. Damaging 5 enemies with penetrating will cause enemies to be vulnerable for 3 seconds, and now it just makes them vulnerable. So now it's better for the guaranteed vulnerable. It's a guaranteed bounce, but it's every 4th, so you can't get lucky with bounces in a row and deals bonus X damage. Seems fine. Seems actually potentially better, though. The RNG lords cannot bless you anymore with that one. So moving on here to Sorcerer. Now, Starfall Coronet Meteor has 2 charges. This is a new item. This is the one they showcased off where the Meteor is now a longer cooldown, and it is going to drop additional meteorites. Okay, so it now has 2 charges, 11 to 6 second charge cooldown instead of a mana cost, and drops 3 additional meteors. This is a massive spread of cooldown, by the way. So it's really going to matter the roll you get on this item. 3 additional meteors is pretty awesome, which means a total of 4. Meteors enhancement effect and enhanced meteor drop 1 additional meteor as well. So we can have a significant amount of meteors. We have a kitty cat spotting here in the background. We can have a significant amount of meteors dropping. I actually think this looks like potentially the coolest item out of all of the items we've seen so far. Now, a new additional one, Ice Blade's chance to apply vulnerable is increased by 20%, and the vulnerable duration is increased by 4 seconds, and you gain vulnerable damage. So a little bit of an Ice Blade's W offensive aspect there. Now, Ball Lightning changed to have its attack rate increased with attack speed up to 25%. That seems like an insane nerf to me. I'm going to give me 1 second here. Okay, so it used to, that's what I thought, it used to give you 200% of the attack speed bonus, but now it's up to 25%. So if you're stacking attack speed, I guess this would, I believe this reads as a nerf. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and do complex mathematical equations at this moment, but I'm pretty sure this is just a nerf. It's up to 25%, and it's an attack rate that gets increased with attack speed up to 25%, instead of, if you actually go and you read it here, Ball's Lightning damage is increased by 200% of your attack speed. So now its attack rate is increased instead of attack damage. That seems like that seems like a pretty massive, because now you just don't have that damage bonus at all. At least that's my understanding here. Maybe someone smarter than me that actually played Ball Lightning. I didn't play Ball Lightning. I played Hoe the Barb. It was my OP build of choice. So maybe I have a bad take on this one. I could be wrong. This could be a buff, but to be honest, this seems like a massive nerf to me. Blizzard here. Mage's Blizzard condition to be cast while over 50 mana has been removed. Oh, okay. Well, that's actually, I mean, I actually thought Blizzard would be pretty cool. So Mage's Blizzard condition to be cast while over 50 mana has been removed. That's a buff, is my understanding of this. Lightning Spear can now apply vulnerability. Seems like a W as well. Paragon here, Searing Heat fixed an issue where the critical strike chance bonus was not properly applying. Critical strike bonus damage increased. So Searing Heat gets a W. Elemental Summoner damage bonus increased from 3 to 5%. Total of your bonus damage, another W they're catching there. Burning Instinct, amount of intelligence required to gain 1% burning damage reduced, which even though it's a reduction, that's actually a buff because you get now 3x the bonus burning damage, is my understanding. So from 75 to 25, meaning that's a 3x increase on how much burning damage you'll be receiving. Item updates. Offensive aspect to Shattered Stars has been changed to be 20-30% of the casted meteor's damage. Okay. Increased charge boat, chance to be attracted to enemies 30-50% to 40-60, and then chance to release Frost Nova when enemy dies increased from 11-20 to 21-30. Got it. Okay. Overall, it seems like Ball Lightning caught a stray bullet, but everything else in this seems pretty good for Sorcerer. Fundamentally less changes than the other classes is what I'm noticing. Now we actually get into the gameplay side of this here. Okay, gameplay, in-game activities, Hell Tides, now going to be active every hour. We talked about this there in the live. Basically, there's a 5-minute gap cooldown between, but Hell Tides are always up so that way you can farm your living steels. That's what it boils down to, okay? Distilled Fear, which is basically the thing you get for the Ice Beast, is going to be easier to acquire. You'll gain one after completing Nightmare Dungeon of tier 30+. Every 10 tiers, there's a chance to gain an additional one. Completing on 90 and beyond will always grant 3. So they're just making it easier to farm these things the farther you go into the game. I don't know why you would farm a whole bunch of Ice Beasts, to be perfectly honest with you, but if you want to, God bless you. Purified Sigil reward for completing Nightmare Dungeon will always grant a Sigil 1 tier higher than the Nightmare Dungeon is completed. That is also nice. Moving on here. Scrolls of Escape. This is a good change. It will auto go to your stash. So if you're playing hardcore and you miss these things, I ran over them all the time because I didn't see them on the ground, just blasting through. I'm not going to pick up all the loot. And now it just goes to your stash. Stack limit increased from 20 to 99. Appears as a legendary, so it's easier to see. Scattered Prisms, these are the things that add the sockets to jewelry, has been reduced in terms of dropping from normal monsters. Sort of makes sense. You used to get these from other activities, but people had a billion of these things anyway, at least I did. So they didn't really even feel like a resource at all, but now you can acquire them from Legion of Chest. They're moving some acquisition of the materials there. That's not a big deal. This is probably the way it should have been originally. Anyway, material cap has been increased from 99999 to 9999999. Either way, it's a fuckload. Treasure goblins spawned while fighting Avarice now have the same loot potential as normally encountered treasure goblins. Okay, so you get that from the boss as well. Kind of cool. World Tier 3 and 4 bosses can now drop unique items from their weekly caches. This is actually a W because the world bosses felt lackluster, but now this gives you a dopamine opportunity to gain some of the unique items you like. Increased cap for item power and drops has been adjusted on world bosses. Previous plus 100 min, plus 100 max, 65 min, 25 to the max. And they said the world bosses are intended to report powerful loot for your level. With this change, at higher levels, players will see maximum either item power gear from world bosses at higher levels. So sort of move some of the power to the in-game there from the drops. Now, this is a change. They say the item power ranges for items for drops by in-game bosses such as Varshan and Azur have been decreased for rare and legendaries items. Unique item power has not been changed. So they show some examples. Varshan in World Tier 3 goes from 675, 750 to 650, 725. Grigori in World Tier 4 here, 850, 925 to 800, 875. Beast in the Ice, 900 to 925, 850 to 925. Durio is always 925. Now, some of you might be saying this is just going to make 925 gear harder to get. The answer to that is yes. And honestly, this is probably in preparation for item changes in Season 4, I would think. I know we're getting massive changes, itemizations coming there. And because of that, they're probably preparing. This might feel bad in order to get your 925s early, but honestly, this is a healthier change for the game. So this is one of those things where this is not, I'm not going to complain about this nerf to the players because this is actually in the correct direction, in my personal opinion. 925 should be the in-game chase, and getting them earlier and earlier and earlier into the game is not good because look at this. You could literally get one as early, level 75 here. You could get 925 and you're done. And then you literally have the rest of your character to not worry about the item at all if you get the right roll. So I actually think in terms of overall health of the game, this will move some of the power from earlier in mid-game to late game, which is smart because a lot of times what would happen is, but you go to Durio, which is where you're supposed to always get your 925s. By then, how many times have I said you can kill them with a bad build on hardcore at level 90 or lower. Durio wasn't necessarily an extremely hard fight, and this actually shifts some of the power. So I actually think fundamentally this is a correct change. Just going to get my opinion out there on that one. Nightmare Dungeon item power scaling has been adjusted to more consistently drop high power loot. And then here we get monsters at level 100. Previous range was 820, 925. They moved the floor up on that to 845. Looks like same thing across the board here. They're moving the floor up, aka yes, less useless items in Nightmare Dungeons make Nightmare Dungeons a little bit more valuable to run once you can actually acquire the 925s. So that's overall a decent change as well. All monsters above level 144 now are guaranteed 925 item power. Again, those Nightmare Dungeon tiers are harder than Durio anyway, so you get rewarded appropriately for that. These are all smart itemization changes in terms of power acquisition. Now it's on to Season 4 to be able to fundamentally get these item power changes properly in terms of affixes now that we have sort of the acquisition side of it a little bit fixed here. Moving forward, miscellaneous potion count will no longer be reset after dying and being revived by another player. Hatred. That's fine because you used to die and instantly get your potions back. Is what that was for. So that's actually mean you're going to have no potions if you die with no potions. Hatred's chosen siphon effect is no longer based on lucky hit. Greed Shrine now also drops additional gold after the effect expires. The amount of gold dropped is determined by how many enemies were killed. So now you have a kill streak. Okay, you go on. Uber unique items can now be unlocked as transmogs. They couldn't before? That seems like the entire purpose of an Uber Unique is to flex you have one. Everyone's just going to get as many Uber Uniques as they can now and just wear all of them. Now, WASD is a huge W. I actually don't care if there's people out there that make fun of people that use WASD and all that. I don't get this controversy at all. In my personal opinion, more ways for more people to enjoy the game the way that they like. God bless them. Also, all the other games are starting to add this in now, so it makes sense that this is a topic of conversation here. Bonuses from keywords such as berserking now also denote whether any associated damage bonus is additive or multiplicative. This is a nice quality of life readability changes. Event timers are now displayed. Again, another visual thing here. Visual effect for being chilled now visually increases in intensity. These are all really good, healthy quality of life changes to make it more obvious immediately for people. Default button binding for mount actions have been adjusted to be more intuitive with the controller. An additional stash tab is now available to be purchased in-game with gold. Purchased in-game with gold, just to clarify, not real money. Maximum stash tabs available are now 6, so we have +1. The icons for Helltide, Chest of Mystery, and Living Steel have been updated to make them more visually distinctive from the other chest icons. Again, more readability. The button for confirming go the mountain on controller has been changed to your triangle on console. This will allow A or X on console bring up virtual keyboard to manually enter go. Okay, so they made this more obvious in terms of go transfer her. That was a complaint on controller. We have introduced a new way for players to approach reworking their skill tree. Now you can refund whole paths or skill clumps while seeing the preview of it all, and they can see how many skill points will be refunded them, how much gold it will cost. So you can prepare in advance. This is a very good option, in my opinion. This should have been a base portion of the game on launch. This seems like a very basic feature, but I actually like this add to the game now. So honestly, all of these user interface and experience changes, these are all good. So then we have a whole bunch of bug fixes. I don't know if you're familiar with me when I do these patch notes, but I don't read 45 hours worth of bug fixes. So as is tradition, we have pages of bug fixes there. You're welcome to read them if you want. So highlights for me. Itemization changes while factually meaning you're getting less power earlier in the game and more so in the later game is a correct change. I actually think this is smart, and I guarantee you they're doing this in preparation of the itemization going into World Tier 4. Score of Escape changes are nice. I actually think most people got away without their builds being horribly ruined. Ball Lightning's a different arguable thing. Rogue definitely is going to have to do some changing with builds, but most of this is buffs across the board. Looks like they're staying true to their promise of not really nerfing people and actually giving other build opportunities. Minions for Necromancer, Bone Spirit for Necromancer, Rabies maybe for Druid, and Lightning Storm for Druid, and Barbarian gets charged. Overall, pretty good patch. In terms of I'm going to just give my opinion on this one real quick because I know people are going to ask. In terms of this is the Season 3 launch patch, there's an argument to be made. This is more of like a mid-season, really good balanced patch. But I'm not going to min-max my enjoyment and gatekeep whether or not this is a good patch. I just think this is overall a good patch and this is moving in the right direction. So I like everything in this patch. So for me today, I'm just going to say, I like it. We're going to see how much Season 3 is enjoyable on launch. I'm sure I'm going to be playing it for at least a week. It comes out here in just a few days. I'm sure a lot of you will be playing it as well. And I will be live streaming it. Probably going to do a 24-hour live stream as soon as the season starts to see how far we can get. And I like everything about this patch. I wish the Gauntlet was on release. I've already said my opinion on that one. But overall, I like all of the changes in this patch, pretty much. And as a Druid player, as a Necromancer player, I liked both of those changes. And I think the itemization changes will be smart because they're definitely in preparation of Season 4, whatever they got planned for itemization there, you can tell. So that's it. That's my take. Overall, yeah, I like it. I'll see you guys in game.